some hope to die.
By these 50 countries, differing so much in race and religion, in language and culture.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
Well, I know they're lying. They tricked me once, but they're not going to trick me twice. The time is now. Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. David Penn, your host. Glad to be with you as always for episode number 274, coming to you at 7 p.m. Central Time this Tuesday night, the 27th of January. Very happy to welcome to the studios of Free People Radio by Zoom, Minnesota gubernatorial candidate, which really doesn't encapsulate who this guy is, Mr. Mike Lindell. Welcome and thank you for joining us this morning, sir.
Well, thanks for having me on.
I just want to tell you and share with you, I've always wanted to make a relationship with you, and we have many contacts in common. And I just want to tell you one story before we start about how impactful you were in my life. I've been involved in international and national politics my entire life at the federal level because of my business career. And I saw that 2020 election. And I recognized, because politics is local, as you're doing by running for governor here in Minnesota, that we've got to win our school boards and our city councils. We got to take over the Republican Party. And you put out a video right after that 2020 election, and I know you're a math guy, so am I, and I was sitting in my house calculating what was going on in Georgia. I said, President Trump's got to win. This is the way it's got to go down. And he lost. And I freaked out. And I called my lawyer, who's actually worked for you a time or two. And I said, man, I'm going crazy. I got to get involved. And I started watching War Room. And then not long after, you put out a video, the first video to attune people to the possibility that was not something right with that election. I want to tell you what happened. It was a Saturday morning. I don't cry because I'm as hard as a rock, Mike, and I know you are because you're an entrepreneur, and when you're an entrepreneur, you learn to be able to take a lot of stress. I watched your video. I cried like a baby for my country, like a baby, and that was part of what motivated me to create this Free People Radio with Royce White. I got involved in the Republican Party in Minnesota. I'm an officer. I've been working my ass off. I put over 300 people into the party, delegates, many of them, and that's why we're here today. We're coming up on CAUCUS, the 3rd of February, and I wanted the people to follow me to see us talking to make sure that they go to CAUCUS and bring everybody that they can get, because we have quite a situation going on here in Minnesota.
Right.
And come on, we're ground zero for the whole planet.
Yeah. Yes.
So, Mike, I want to thank you. I just want to tell you, as an American citizen, a Minnesotan, I want to thank you. I own a company. I know what it's like to be under federal pressure. I am still. I understand the sleepless nights, the anxiety. I'm a guy that gets it. So I really want to hear from you, and I want to welcome you, and I want to just,
thank you.
I want to let you reach out to this audience, which is going to be a big one, and let's get them to CAUCUS. Don't you agree?
Right on. Absolutely. And you bring up something very important. That movie was called Absolute Proof, and it aired February 5th of 2021. And there signifies two important dates in history that are getting missed here, and that is January 7th and 8th of 2021. And why are they significant? Well, 1.2 million Americans were deplatformed that day off YouTube, Vimeo, Zuckerberg's Facebook, Jack Dorsey's Twitter, and the president, remember, lost 100 million followers that day. Now, what they did, if you had spoke out about the 2020 election, you were just canceled. And Parler was the only competition to both Facebook and Twitter at that time, and Parler got wiped off the face of the earth. So on those days, so what I compare those 2 days for, when I was growing up, we had the old black and white TVs, and as kids we would turn them off and they'd go down to this little tiny dot. And that dot was our voice that day. And we turn it back on, that dot would come back to life. And I really believe that, I started getting canceled. I got evidence on January 9th, but and then I started getting canceled. I was the most canceled to this day. MyPillow, I think, the most canceled company in history, and myself. Well, that led up to when I aired that movie. I think it gave it. Well, I know it did. It gave people hope. People were looking for hope, and our since that movie, and then I had the cyber symposium. I had all kinds of stuff, but our voice came back to life. It just started expanding. Like you say, your podcast. You got into podcasts. Nowadays, our voice is huge. We have all the social media platforms from Vocal to True Social, Getter, Gab. We have Elon's X instead of Jack Dorsey's Twitter, where everything used to get covered up. So we have a huge voice now that we've never had, probably one of the biggest voices in history. And that's why where we're at now, people say, well, how could you win Minnesota? How could you, hasn't been, it's been blue since 1972 and all these things. And well, I've lived in Minnesota my whole life, and I don't believe this. And one thing, I believe the president won the 2016 election, even in Minnesota. And, but what I'm saying is now, the way we're situated now, obviously Minnesota is the tip of the spear for the whole country. And a winning governor is critical. Well, let me tell you right now, I'll just give an example of how our voice is going to be so powerful. 250,000 people voted for Donald Trump in 2020 in Minnesota. They didn't bother and vote in 2022. And so it is so important. I said it, we've been going to all these debates. One of my most important things that I have that the other candidates don't have, I mean, we'll talk about all the policies I have and all the things I'm going to do. But one of the things is what I can do that they can't. And that's what I've learned in politics. We got to raise so much money for marketing. I'm a marketer, and to market whatever the candidate is, whatever the cause is. And I've already raised, I don't know, upwards of $1 million, but they have only been in the race a month or whatever. But I have a national presence to be able to raise money. They're pouring it in. And also, when I get with the president, this is really important, everybody, because they go, well, Mike, how can you're so branded with Donald Trump, that you come with baggage. And well, Donald Trump won with baggage, and that baggage is having the receipts. We've got the receipts. Don't kid yourself. If with all the fraud going on in Minnesota, you don't think our elections have fraud in them? Well, we've got people on the ground in all 50 states. That's what I built up over the last 5 years. And great things coming out where we're going to be able to, what did the president use the term, too big to rig? We're going to get so many people out voting. But the other thing is they say, well, Mike, how are you going to get Democrats and independents? Because you're once again, you're so branded with Donald Trump. And well, here's what I will tell them. I come from a life of, I live downtown Minneapolis. I come from my story of addiction. And I quit everything by the grace of God, January 16, 2009. But since that time, I was working down Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester with what, everybody? The welfare programs, all the homeless and all these childcare, all these different things, using the private sector, using your teen challenges, your Salvation Army, my own platform that I set up using the private sector. So that's a very powerful thing I'll be doing. But bring up when you talk about being elected, because I think this is important right now, so people realize, it's one thing you have this person that might be more knowledgeable in politics. I'm not a politician, but I will learn anything that needs to be learned very fast and take care of it like an entrepreneur. But this is very important what people are going to hear. For the president, when I helped him campaign, which was 5 years, we started 5 years ago. Him and I started very early on in the spring of 2021. And we were in lockstep about the election and for him to run. And And anyway, I did a thing in the summer of 2024, a little over a year and a half ago. I came up with this idea. We used it in the 2016 election, and I mean, a little bit there, or the 2018. I think it was a midterm. But here's what I did, everybody. I went into the heart of Chicago. Me and my friend Rudy Giuliani, who also works for me at Lindell TV. Um, but him and I went in there, and we went to the Democrat convention, actually, by the way, too. But that was just to get attention to what I'm going to tell you next. We went into the heart of Chicago, and we found all these Democrats that had voted Democrat. Most were blacks and Hispanics, and we found this so many of them that were now going to vote for Donald Trump, even though they might not like him. And we filmed them. And the reason that came out of what they were saying was so powerful to pull other people into the mix. You and I can sit here and we can try and convince people in the middle left and in these times we're in, oh, we need, come on over. But you need to have people that are fed up, that are just like them, that say, hey, there's a better path. And that path will be Mike Lindell in this case. And so what I'm going to do is take that. It's all about information too, and educating the people what you're going to do. Not just say I'm going to lower taxes and I'm going to build better healthcare and all these things that normally you say in politics. Well, how are you going to do it? And one of the things I've been doing for the last year now, or now half a year, I guess, since I was going to run, I started studying the problems we have in Minnesota, just like the president did for the last 5 years. He's ready. He was ready on day one to push not just one thing forward. Like they said, well, Mike, what are you going to do? What's your most important thing you're going to do on day one? And one of the things is ban Sharia law, by the way. But on day one, I want to start with everything, because I've talked to you, you silo it all out, and you, just like our president has, he's one of the best mentors I've ever known and friend that's a multitasker. I've never seen anything like it. And in order to multitask, you better do your due diligence ahead of time, which is what I've been doing. So I've really got I'm excited, and ready to go.
It's really great to talk to you. The last time I heard you speak, you went to the X Space Minnesota Speaks, and I just want to give you the feedback. In the party, the Republican Party in Minnesota, when they say someone's unelectable, that's because they're afraid of them.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
That's a scam. Like Royce White is unelectable. Mike Lindell is unelectable. Phil Parrish is unelectable. In other words, anybody that's not part of their club is unelectable. And the reason they say they're unelectable is they work to make sure you're not elected. So your own people are working against you. And so what we're trying to do by getting citizens to caucus, and the citizens need to understand this, 2,200 Minnesotans are going to endorse our standard bearers at the spring convention. Now, Mike Lindell can win without the endorsement, but he'd prefer to have the endorsement. Absolutely. And we'd prefer to have control, the citizens, the patriot citizens, to have control of this party so we could have real unity. And I'm going to tell you, Mike, I can work with anybody. I mean, but I'm not working with them on their rhino terms. I want them to break bread with us. But I do want to say something before you start again that is super important. The citizens of the state, the people in the parties, do not understand how important this election issue really is. They understand a lot of it, but color revolutions that have a 150-year history that we're living through in Minnesota are all the predicate for every color revolution is undermining the election process. So when somebody stands up and says these elections are not right, I'm not surprised that the full weight of the deep state and every mechanism of power fell down upon you. And I got it falling down upon me because I'm like I'm the Minnesota version trying to build up and fight for truth. but it's so important. I could just imagine the terror these people have at night of you becoming governor of this state. And
Yeah.
you're talking about the things that you want to do, and you alluded to the Sharia law, and you said, well, you're going to take an entrepreneur's approach to it. I have a comment, and I want you to comment back. We have people running for governor right now who are the quintessential insiders and actually served in the legislature that oversaw this robbing and stealing here in Minnesota. And as a business person, I'm going to tell you, if I have let's say a warehouse where the warehouse manager comes to me and says, hey, boss, we're 20 million short in the inventory.
Yeah.
That guy's got to go
Yeah.
because that's his watch to make sure I don't get robbed. Do you agree with me about that?
100%. And, two of the candidates.
Do you need tires? Go to tireget.com, TIREGET.com. The link is down in the description. I don't know about you, but I don't like waiting in a tire shop or talking to a salesman. TireGet makes it so easy I can order the tires right from my couch. Seriously, it's one website, a few clicks, and the tires are delivered right to your installer. You drop off your car, and boom, your tires are on. Plus, you get to support Free People Radio. So not only do you get tires, but you also get to support your favorite show. We'll even throw in an extra little deal. Just enter promo code FPR in the checkout for an extra 3% off.
I'm learning this stuff, but two of the candidates on the debate stages, they're actually bragging that they've been, that they put this in 2 years ago when you're talking about fraud. And I'm going, well, obviously you either didn't yell loud enough or how come we didn't know about, look, the state we're in. If you were there, I wouldn't be talking about it. I'll tell you that, saying, oh, I was there and look what I did. Obviously, you didn't do anything because we're in the most massive problem, the biggest fraud in the history of the United States, they're calling it. And I'll tell you, when people have said to me, like with my company, over the last 4.5 years, like I said earlier, the most attacked company in history, and by our own government, by the way, you guys can look this up. It was called Operation Arctic Frost. The Biden administration, they came after it. Jack Smith came after over 90 individuals, Charlie Kirk, Turning Point, and one company, MyPillow. They debanked us. They went to my vendors. The DOJ did, said, don't do business with the FBI. They subpoenaed my bank. They went after my merchant server. The attacks we had during that time, because everyone says, well, Mike, boy, well, I went on Esme Murphy the other day. What does she do? She says 2 questions. Well, aren't you bankrupt? No, who told you that? I was able to guide, as an entrepreneur and a CEO, guide this massive ship through a storm as they're getting blown to bits. And we're going, hey, take care of this over here. Do this over here. Let's do this over here, to get through where without God and the grace of God and guidance, we couldn't have got through. And another thing she said, well, Mike, you lost the $5 million challenge for your evidence. And I go, Esme, it was overturned by the 8th Circuit in Minneapolis. They said Mike was right. She goes, well, I don't believe that. And I'm going, so I sent her after the show. This just last week. So people have been brainwashed, just brainwashed, because you're right. They don't want to be elected. So let's not only attack, but let's keep putting out dirt over there. Put out the truth, put out the truth once. But I'll tell you, if you're running if I'm right, when I'm governor, and I want to say, and I'm always optimistic. So as I talk in that sense, obviously we got a lot of work to do, and we're going to get there.
Mike, it's called assuming the close. I love it. Right. Go for it.
But when I see something, I said, I'll tell you, my wife and I prayed in August. I told the president I was going to be thinking about running, and I said, but we're gonna pray about it. And I said, I want MyPillow to be secure so I can go 100% all in. When I go all in, I go all in. I don't stop ever. And MyPillow got secure around Thanksgiving, where I think that when we've I think other than Keith Ellison attacking my charities right now, he's going after my recovery.
With 40,000 NGOs and all this money getting robbed, he's picking on Mike Lindell. That's funny, isn't it, Mike?
That's ironic. Yeah. But you have MyPillow over here with that. Now let me tell you, so let's just look at that. Now, during these times, we had to look at each department and each segment for, is there fraud over here? Is we're like, I'll call it being attacked. Is that we had people, you look at everything at the same, all the departments over. One of the things with my business is almost every employee has my direct number, and they will call me if there's a deviation, and that can be a deviation in behavior or it can be a deviation in numbers. Now, if I'm a governor, if I'm Walsh and I'm a governor, and I'm sitting there going, and you're all of a sudden you're missing 9 billion and then 18 billion. You're either the most incompetent person in history as a leader or you were in on it. Well, we all know he's probably president now, but I'm just saying, is when I'm governor, all these departments, I don't care, all the welfare departments, any silos of government, there's going to be open communication because I micromanage and macromanage. And what I mean by that, the micromanage part, this won't be, well, let's wait till third quarter's over and see how things are looking. I've heard some of the people on that debate stage say, well, what I'm going to do, you check in the end of the quarter, well, look at what we're finding. No, you check every week. You see a deviation, or maybe every day in some cases. And you know what? That call better come in that there's a problem. And when I see a problem, I go for it and I don't let up. If anybody that's worked for me, you fix it now. You dive in it so it doesn't magnify and get worse. Then if you have a deviation that something's working, obviously you duplicate it. So I'm excited for that because it needs to be ran like a businessman, a CEO. And I've had one great mentor being friends with the president of the United States and watching how we're very similar in those cases where you're able to do multi things, but you got to have good teams around you. And they've got to be accountable. If they don't report the deviations, we got a problem. Okay.
So what you're saying, Mike, is you've got, if we look at how the Trump administration from day one came in with a script, not one issue, they took on the whole system on day one, and we don't even know everything they're going to do because we didn't get to the next chapter. They know what they're up to. What I'm hearing you say is you're developing, or you have developed, a game plan that day one, when you take that oath, that afternoon, you're deploying a whole range of strategies to address the issues that have destroyed Minnesota.
In every single sector, not just, whether it be the farmers. I met with the farmers. I'll just give an example. One of their biggest concerns is corn prices. They say there needs to be over $5 corn to be self-sustaining. And they told me, I said, well, tell me about different ways we could do that. And they told me about sustainable aviation fuel in Minnesota. This new, that corn's used in. It's kind of like kerosene. Well, we have it right. We have a pipeline right from Hastings all the way to the airport, the Minneapolis airport. We have something that can be done, be the start. And it's ready to go. But so I met with them. Then you got the teachers over here. I've learned so much over here in education. We've spent 29% more on education, and we went from like the top 3 down to like 39th in the nation of how smart, how these kids are coming out. But there's other things I found out. I'm going, well, how did that happen? And then, so you look at how it happened. I've really been digging into this one. And then you also, and as I dug in, I'm going, wow, this is becoming so expensive. What's going on? Well, they're funded by bonds, and then the bonds get funded by more bonds. So it becomes this giant Ponzi scheme. And when they run low on money, you know what they do? They raise our property taxes. So you got a system is not only working, you're not getting your return on your investment because your kids are going way down. Well, one of the things they're missing is discipline. They can't, if they have problem kids in the class or some that don't speak English, everybody, it's a big problem for the teachers because everybody suffers, not just the horrible curriculums that are coming in from the unions and stuff and the boards that they're bringing. This all needs to be, that becomes a huge platform that needs to be fixed day one. There's certain executive orders, certain things you can get out. To the public. This is another thing too that this is real important where I'm going to differ from the other candidates and why you need to get out there, and we do need that GOP endorsement, is communication. Me as a CEO or a governor is going to be communicate to the public. I have the biggest platform, the biggest voice. I have a national voice, but I'll tell you what, the transparency, I'll be the most transparent governor you ever seen. You think the president's on TV every day, and him and I have learned you go on live so they can't soundbite you and all this stuff. That's why he goes live all the time. We got tired of it. They tape and they soundbite you and stuff. So think of this. If we have problems, we're all going to know about it. And we're all going to know about the successes too. And then when you get this pushback from our own, sometimes our own party, if you get pushback, people are going to know about it. We're going, hey, we got a great thing we're going to do over here. And here's the people that are pushing back on it. And
call them out.
We're going to call them out every single day because just like our president does, you're going to, over these last 5 years, I've seen, a lot of people call them rhinos. They call them, I call it uniparty Republicans. I've had blocks, and what I've done during the last 5 years, built a 300,000 strong called the Cause of America. This is why MyPillow is being attacked. I still built this huge national election platform where these people, like I say, it's 300,000 strong. We go into every county, all the counties to get them to the best solution to elections, which is paper ballots and counted, same day voting, precinct level voter ID, all these things. Well, you'd be surprised. Some of the biggest pushbacks we've had have been red states: Arkansas, Alabama, Louisiana, South Dakota. You're going, are you kidding me? Some of our biggest successes have been, ready everybody? California, where we break through, and everyone says, well, what do you care about this, or what do you care about Maine or Oregon or Hawaii or Alaska? Anywhere we've got a breakthrough that can, and then you magnify that with our voice and show, hey, this is working here. And then you duplicate it. But I've been, this is one of the things I'm going to call out. I'll tell you, just like, you brought it up with our party in Minnesota, they're not going to get by with, sitting with the status quo. Oh yeah, we're even, we did this 2 years ago. You did this. I'm sorry that you can go back a year ago, I think it was, and KSTV. We have some of the worst media in the United States, by the way, is Minnesota, starting with the Star and Tribune. I'm sure you know that.
Yes, sir.
So the biggest cover up and all this, but I think it was a year ago, I think it was KSTP put out this report about fraud. Well, if Republicans knew back then, these guys knew back then, they should have been shouting from the rooftops. I don't care if you sent letters to, hey, we got a problem here. Well, you better yell louder.
I've been, Mike, I've been all over the top of these people. Just to let you know, the establishment of the Republican Party hates me because I've been calling these people out. I'm one of the first people, and I know you appeared on The Truth Hurts with Jake, and they hate him too. And you announced your candidacy at that Christmas party that was put on by A4L. And, we're all Republicans. What we're looking for, and this is a very important thing that we're trying to promote here at Free People. There's this thing we're supposed to agree with each other. No, we're looking for aligned interests. We don't have to love each other. We need to work together to beat these communists. I mean, really, that's the deal. And I'm going to just say, let me pitch for you for just a second. The idea, the thought that we could have a transparent governor, this is their headquarters, Minnesota. This whole leftist thing is based right here in Minnesota, which most Minnesota Republicans don't know. You know it. They have their infrastructure is here. Mark Elias started here. They cut their teeth here. Amy Klobuchar is here. And it's all so Minnesota nice. We don't want to challenge it because, hey, we're all Minnesotans. But if you came in, if you won, and you had a transparent platform, and you actually took on this state power, this entrenched communist network here in this state. Well, they call it progressive. It's communist. Let's just start calling it what it is. And when I say communist, I don't mean economically. I mean religiously. It's a religious, for me, do we want to have the freedom to have faith in Christ, or do we want to live in a collective? That's the battle in what we try to promote here at Free People. So the thought of a non-machine politician which there's only two that are running, you and Phil Parrish, to get into the center of power and take on and show it to the whole country? When you say, well, California, you got to start somewhere. Wherever we can start to start reforming these states, let it be Minnesota. Let it be a miracle. And I also want to say, when you talk, every time you talk about being the most suppressed company, because I'm going through that myself, our audience, most of them do not own businesses, most of them. They don't know the hell you've endured, the sleepless nights, the tenacity, the I will not quit. You're not, if you're gonna have to break me because I'm not giving up. That kind of tenacity, that kind of energy is based on faith in God. And
Yes.
I'm sure, you didn't say it, but I'm sure when you realized MyPillow was secure last year, what came for your heart was, thank you, Lord, for sustaining me to this day. I'm sure of it, because your walk takes supernatural protection, in my opinion. Would you agree with me about that?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be here if without my faith in God. And I think back to the last 2 years, yeah, there was many mornings I'd wake up and say, God, I felt like, why does this keep happening? And then on another path over here, I'm praying, going, if you look up patience, everybody, you don't see a picture of me, okay? But I've had to learn patience. I've had to learn that with the president I talk about, this is all on God's timing. I'll give you a little story. It was last summer, the summer of 24, before he got shot. And him and I were sitting there, and he goes, Mike, he goes, how's MyPillow doing? I said, oh, they're just attacking. It's terrible. And then we talked about he goes, they're just destroying our country. And I said, sir, I said, these are actually good things. And I'm telling him this. I said, me being an example and you getting attacked, maybe getting attacked for nothing. I said, and we're not giving up. I said, these are actually, it's opening people's eyes and getting people over here that weren't involved are now getting involved. People here that are seeing the light. And I said, there's two buckets going on. This is what I told him. The first bucket is the bucket of common sense. And I said, it's like the greatest advertising for it. All these attacks and all this evil out there attacking. I said, they're jumping in your bucket of common sense, this new party of common sense. And then I said, and there's another bucket going on. I said, that's the bucket of Jesus Christ. I said, people don't look to God when things are going good. It's when things are going bad. And he looked at me and he goes, well, Mike, he goes, I don't know if we could get this fixed in 4 years. And I said, sir, with God, all things are possible. And him working through you, you'll get it done faster and better than anyone. And look what's happened, everybody. And this is another thing I want to tell people, as long as we're on this, is, I used to, people come up to me all the time. If everyone remembers when I was at the Rose Garden, I said in the spring, right before the China virus, they said the president invited me there, and I went on stage and said, you don't mix church and God, church and state, or God and government. Well, I did. I said a nation had turned its back on God. I said we had taken God out of our schools. We need to get back in our Bibles and back in with our families and back in the Word, and pray for God's grace. And people would come up to me all the time the last 5 years and going, Mike, this doesn't feel like grace. And I said, oh, but it is. And I said, but I prayed and Donald Trump didn't get in right away. And I said, which we know now, by the way, everybody, if he was put in, we would have lost our country forever. That's a fact. I've been saying that for day one. All this stuff over the last 5 years had to happen just the way God intended and on God's timing. So what I tell people, I say, that might be not God's will or God's timing, your prayers. I said, I used to pray all the time. I'd be, in jail or something back in the day for a traffic, D-dub, or way back in the 80s, going, God, get me out of here, and I will never do this again. Well, that maybe it wasn't God's will to get me out that day, right? And, but I said, well, where's God's will? And God's will is in the Word. And so every day I get up, my wife and I get in the Bible, read our Bible, and And now you can be proactive in prayer, and they line up beautifully, and it gives you a peace. So I can get a peace as I continue to get attacked and beat up, and know that this is a much bigger than just a Republican Democrat thing. This is Minnesota is the tip of the spear, this battle of evil and good. That's beyond anything we've ever seen. This is historical. This is a historical election. It is critical. This isn't one of these, oh, the Republicans here and then they win in midterms here. And well, traditionally midterms, they vote this way. No, everybody, this is an anomaly in history. We have to win. There is no tomorrow, like it's going to be, oh, we'll do better next time or whatever. It's now, now, now. And that's why you can't have these establishment candidates. They've been there and didn't go anywhere. All we were doing there is getting boiled like frogs. And then one day we wake up and that's it. It's all gone. And there people will be pouring out of Minnesota if we don't win this election. We have to.
Mike, this is so critical what you're saying, and it dovetails so beautifully with what we've been doing here at Free People Radio. And I'm not saying that there aren't some professional politicians that could become allies. How do we get them to be allies? When the citizens flood into CAUCUS,
Yes.
when the citizens take over the party, when the citizens hold these people accountable, oh, they're professionals. They'll all of a sudden become very good if they feel their dog bowl is going to get turned over by the citizens of Minnesota. We don't need these people to be 100% like I am or like you are. We need them to see that their future careers depend on searching for truth, being honest with the public, revealing everything, not being afraid, not being cowards. I've watched over the last couple of days, and if you were watching the Minnesota news, we got a lot of cowards popped up, the same cowards that always pop up, from our party. So, this is part and parcel of what's always been. What we're trying to do is create a great change. And what I say, and I want to dovetail again on what you just said, when you read that Bible, and when I read our Bible, people read it like it's a history. No, it is the action plan for winning today. And if people want to know where the plan is, hey, just pick up Mark and start reading it, because it'll tell you how to defeat the people that, and this is another thing. If these people win, like you say, this election's so important. They're saying that we're not democratic, that Donald Trump is a dictator. These are the people that were going to lock us up for not taking those shots. Where's people's memories? You just talked about 1.2 million people getting deplatformed.
Right.
And suddenly we're the people that don't want to have freedom and faith? No. No. We got to remember who we're fighting here.
That's right. We got to remember that the same evil let a satanic statue be put right in the middle of the Capitol and gets an award for it. And then he says, well, we got to be fair. Fair to the devil? Are you out of your mind? I mean, this is crazy.
That's a great clip there, Mr. Tanner. That's a great short. We don't want to be fair to the devil because he has no intention of being fair to us.
Right.
It's not about fair.
Right. And I think, like I say, you people in Minnesota, you have an opportunity in history here, not just to get everyone out to millions out. I'm going to get millions to vote, but also to turn people. And we talk about the inner city. Like I say, I was an addict down in Minneapolis. I have many friends down there. I to this day, right now, I'm talking to them. They've had it. A lot of them, they've had it. So many of them have had it with the protesters. We have some of the best protester laws in the country, but we've never followed one of them. When you can stop people in the middle of the road, when years ago they block off 35W, Black Lives Matter, and my employees couldn't get to work, and we couldn't get supplies, and our government lets this happen. But this is a perfect time in history to pull people with problem solution. And you can't, another thing, when we say too big to rig, but you better get the word out of what your solutions are. And I'm going to give you 3 examples here, if I can, of let's just talk Minneapolis. Let's just take the fraud out of the. Let's take all these riots or put these or the other stuff going on, the protests. How do we? I was in Minneapolis 2 weeks before Christmas, and I brought a tear to my eye. I was Christmas shopping, and I'm going, back in the day, we have the first mall in the United States with Southdale Mall in Bloomington. I grew up with that mall, and I'm in there, and it's just not busy. I used to have a store in there, and I'm thinking, okay, how do we bring this back? Well, let me just tell you. First thing is, like I say, I'm friends with Mayor Rudy Giuliani, one of my best friends. He cleaned up New York, and he brought the people back, the safety back, and he did it at Times Square. There's things he did and put into place. I want to use that model to bring safety back. So you got to bring that back, and that's enforcing you already have good protest laws. You go get a permit, you protest over here. You don't commit crimes while you're protesting. That doesn't work, and then you do that. But then also, now you get the safety back, but then these are the two things that are also important, very important. One is you got to give people a reason to shop at the box stores and the physical stores again. I bet because everybody's buying online with your Amazons and even your MyPillows of the world, but you got to give an incentive. So I want to immediately. I have a plan to eliminate the sales tax in those physical stores. So you're not, to eliminate sales tax. And you balance this teeter-totter. So, hey, I'm going to go save some money. I'm going to come to the stuff that would come into Minnesota. I've studied these other states that don't have sales tax. It brings in people too from other states to come in and maybe they buy a big ticket item or to go to our malls that are now becoming empty. And that's a great plan there. But the other thing is, when we talk about safety and cleaning up a city, when I came out of addiction, like I say, I worked with these, with what we have all these welfare programs now. And one of the things, when you take fraud out of it, obviously that'd be one of the first things we get this fraud going, but you also have to check into each program and say, is it worth keeping? Is it worth keeping? Does it have an end? You better check into all these fraud or these welfare programs, and which I've done. I started about 10 years ago with this platform using private sector money. I was the government. I put millions in. Imagine a huge give, send, go. People want to help in the private sector, but they want to put their money, the rich people, into things they're partial to, that that they know they're getting their biggest bang for their buck. They're getting a return on their investment. Well, you do that, and I tested it in Detroit, actually, everybody. And it was amazing. We saved 40%. I'm talking homeless and people in addiction, you name it, childcare, all these things. And we saved 40%. Can you imagine taking fraud out of these programs and you replace it with programs that work, and you bring it down 40% of your cost? And now you have all this excess money, and what do? Now you lower our taxes. You bring it back to the people. But here's the biggest thing for our cities. So I worked with the cities for 17 years now: Rochester, Minneapolis, and St. Paul. Mostly with addiction. I was an ex-crack cocaine addict, and when I was in the first administration, one of my best friends is Dr. Ben Carson. And Ben, heck, we came up. I worked with him with HUD there, and they came up with the most amazing program. It's a lot like Colorado Springs in a way, where they have everything in one area for their help centers. But what it is, and they were going to try it. The first thing they were going to do it in LA County, or in LA. They were going to do it in LA. And even the governor and the mayor agreed, wow, this is an amazing program. Here's what it did, everybody. You take the people in the streets, and you take them and you make this as like a tent city, federal land, federally owned, and you bring them all out, and you basically sort them into their needs. And one of the things in the early 1970s, the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest came out. Remember that?
Yes,
and
sir.
When that came out, over 3 million. Well, then also Geraldo Rivera went and investigated, is this really happening? And
that was a big deal in New York when he did that. That made his career.
Yeah.
Here comes winter. In winter, good tires aren't a luxury, they're a necessity for safety. At TireGet.com, getting your winter tires is quick, easy, and priced right. With TireGet.com, you order online, install right by your house, and stay safe on the road this winter season.
And it was. So what happened after that? They shut down all these mental institutions and 3 million people were flooded into the streets. Oh, they'll go home with their family. No, they went to the streets. Now it could be as high as 15 to 20 million people that need help. Our great president just last week in a thing, he says, well, we've got to bring back the mental institutes as much as I want to, but we have to. But now we have technologies nowadays to get these people the help they need. So imagine this program, and I have the blueprints for it. I just talked to Ben last week or 2 weeks ago. That blueprint is amazing. So you take the people in the streets of Minneapolis. I want to use Minneapolis, St. Paul, and others, in Minnesota to be the prototype for this, the beautiful prototype. Bring it in. You get these people help that need the mental help. Then you have all the people you have three kinds of people in the street. Then you have the people in addiction, and the people in addiction, you put them where it works, that are built for this. Salvation Army, Teen Challenges, and you subsidize your Teen Challenges. These are treatment centers that work with no strings attached. Minnesota they did it with Teen Challenge, but they said you can't talk about God anymore. No, this should be done with no strings attached because they have a success rate of 85% or better. Then you have the third section, and these people have just, because of our giveaways and all these programs, that's their lifestyle. And you know what? You go get a job now. Okay. And you put them into jobs just like Rudy Giuliani did in New York. He hired all these people to clean up the city. I mean, you're talking about the old fashioned, physically cleaning up the garbage and streets and stuff. And these people had jobs. It was amazing. So I can't wait to put these programs forth and make Minneapolis and St. Paul the best cities in the world.
Mike, let me just say back, because this is very important. This is the core. This is one of the things you'll start day one. What I heard you say was, number one, if it's not safe to shop, if it's not safe to go into the city, if it's not safe to go to the mall, people don't feel safe. They're going to buy online.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you're saying is the very simple fix, let's make the physical environments sales tax free.
Yeah, sales tax free and safe. Yeah.
And what people don't understand.
This came up the other day, you guys. I had a lady walking in Portland, and she was being sarcastic, and she's walking, and she goes, and there's no other people. She goes, we're in the safest city in the country because there were no people downtown anymore.
And you know what people need to understand, the audience, what Mike is proposing is a way to save the finances of the state, because the real estate crisis that's building up because of this lack of safety in the core city, in the malls. I was at the Burnsville Mall just this last weekend for a Vietnamese New Year's celebration. It was a political event for me. The mall is broken. It's just broken.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is now we're going to make this tax-free. It's going to bring people back to the malls. That's going to solve a real estate problem. It's going to solve a tax problem. It's going to solve an employment problem. That's a brilliant idea. I do agree with you. And you're also saying when you start to wring the fraud out of these programs and make the programs effective, now you're taking people off the streets, but suddenly you have jobs for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, years ago, I seen this coming. This is back in 2017, I believe. And I met with a bunch of Republicans experts that were in some roundtable in New York. And I brought up and I told them, I said, we're going to have huge problems because I was, I had stores in all these malls back then, and MyPillow sold nationwide. I had physical places. And I said, if we don't address this now, these physical box stores and small businesses, they pay all kinds of taxes. Well, then you have the monster Amazon up here and Walmart.com and all this stuff. There's no taxes. The internet is free. So it's going to be, people end up being at home like robots at home, and all these things will be ghost towns like the old West. Just Nobody. And we had to, and back then I proposed an internet tax, and they go, we don't need more taxes. Well, it wasn't, if you eliminate here, we're not paying any more taxes, but we're balancing the teeter-totter with like the sales tax so that people can go for, an incentive to go physically shop again, or it's going to be over. I mean, you're going to have, like you say, you went to Burnsville. I went to Southdale before Christmas. This is a problem in every single city in the world, or in the country.
A huge real estate crisis, a huge bond crisis, a huge taxation crisis, because when these malls fail, when the inner cities fail, they come out and they start taxing everybody else more to raise the money. It's really something that has to be addressed. And further relative to this issue, and I want to get into this just for a second. Just humor me for a second. We keep Free People Radio going with an e-commerce tire strategy called TireGet.com. And we sell tires all over the country. We have thousands of places to install them. And it's something I'm very passionate about. At one time, I thought about calling it My Tire, but I thought that'd be a little bit tough because it's your idea is so great. But I want to transmit through you a message to the president. Something very important, because borders have a spiritual component. We talk about that on Free People. A physical border, limits the ambitions of man. You're talking about getting people back into the malls. That's called peer-to-peer interaction. So people are healthy and well. You can't be well sitting at your house playing on your phone all day. Makes people sick.
Right.
And somebody wants people to be sick. That's another part of this story. But the border has a spiritual component, limits our ambitions. It has a people component. Look what Biden did. Nobody's talking about why we have this problem in Minnesota, letting in all these people. So the president's closed the border, and he was elected to do so. But there's a product part to it. And I want to transmit this message, and I'm going to ask you to be a messenger. They're going to figure this out in 6 months. I'm going to tell you right now, I import tires. The president put these reciprocal taxes in to save the economy, to save the dollar, really, to close the gap on our budget. We need it. And what's happening is fraud. Massive fraud is happening across every industry, because now you've got that 20 or 25% tax wedge, and these pop-up entities, which I know you probably have Chinese pop-up entities that make MyPillows and sell them against you on Walmart and Amazon. There's fraud because you're in the pit with me, the trench.
Yeah.
The administration is policing the people. The border for product needs policing, because the fraud is putting honest business people like me out of business. Right. Another one of those sleepless night deals. Am I making myself understandable to you, sir?
Yeah. And I want to tell you an example of our great president with that. I brought him when you talk about, on things like your Facebook ads, everybody that will pop up. It was getting so bad. The Chinese companies, Temu, or what's it called?
Temu, yes.
Temu, and there's two other ones. Alibaba, there's another one. There's three of them.
Shine, you're thinking of Shine.
And they were just bombarding Facebook with this. And I brought this to the president this spring, and I said, these guys are just destroying everybody online. They were absolutely destroying. So I don't know what he did, but he got it stopped, at least slowed down. And I think he probably went right to like Mark Zuckerberg over at Facebook, who, by the way, is still not with us. I mean, he does a lot of stuff. Maybe he doesn't out in the open block and cover up like he used to, but he sure suppresses conservatives and anybody out there wanting to get the word out. But that's a whole nother story.
Mike, what the president did, I'm sorry, let me tell you what the president did. You brought it to his attention. These companies were bringing product in what was called the de minimis exclusion using the U.S. Postal Service, shipping it in less than $1,000 or whatever the
that's
threshold.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And he stopped that.
Yeah.
And this is called rebalancing the economy so that it's fair for honest American citizens like me, who won't break the law, who follow this is the deal. I learned the law to follow it. We got people that learn the law to break it. And that's when the rules-based order breaks down. They're blaming Trump and saying, oh, you're breaking the rules-based order. They broke it in 1997. They broke it for 25 years. All he did was blow the whistle and say, hey, there's no rules. There hasn't been any rules. Not because we don't want rules. You don't follow them. So now it's a little bit tough to pull it back into the center of the road. The same thing as when you become the governor, to fix the problems in this state, you're going to be confronting power and principalities and powers that are going to work against every effort you make to restore dignity to the Minnesota citizens.
Well, I've had 5 years, or actually more than that, probably since I met Donald Trump in 2016. So I probably had 9 years of good training with all these attacks, right?
You're well seasoned.
Bring it on.
You're tough as a $2 steak. Now I know exactly. This is what I want to keep saying to my audience. What impresses me, I had a sleepless night last night. People don't understand. People think, oh, to be a successful entrepreneur, you got to be the smartest guy. No, that's not what does it. Oh, you got to have money in the family. No, that's not what does it. What does it is the ability to withstand anxiety, to keep going under tremendous anxiety and attack. And everyone who's successful in business has, well, I don't know if you master it, you just get used to it. I mean, it's,
yeah.
And well, so I am so impressed. I'm impressed with you, Mike, because I've followed what you've been through for 5 years. I've watched what they've done to MyPillow. It has torn my heart out. And I'm going through the same thing. So my affection for you is just knowing the struggle that you put down worldly things and material pursuits, picked up your cross, and you were willing to lose everything in pursuit of the truth. People don't understand what that means. I do. And I want every Minnesota citizen to understand that you, like Donald Trump, if he'd lost, he'd be in jail right now.
Right.
Right?
That's right. That's right.
So people have to understand who's doing the fighting for them and have some, get out to caucus and support people that are not part of the machine. That's what you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I look at it, anything, I always did this example in, when I did my first infomercial in October 7th, 2011, I remember at MyPillow in the summer of 2011, the box stores, nobody would take us. And I said I had a dream of an infomercial. And well, I didn't realize that infomercials are only to get in the box stores. They really don't work on the direct sales. It's just, anyway, basically, you don't do infomercials to try and make money. You do it for lower advertising to get in the box store. Well, I didn't know it doesn't work. And my friends and I said, let's pool our money. I had the dream we're going to be the biggest infomercial in the world. And we went in to film it in August of 2011 in St. Paul. And back then, everybody, I had a fear of talking in public. I mean, like you would believe it was, and I found out later when I wrote my book, it was fear of rejection. You don't get rejected if you don't talk, right? So anyway, the night before, and I had done pillow shows all over Minnesota for years, going town to town and selling them. And I remember the night before we're filming this, they bring in this producer from Hollywood or whatever, and we're doing our reads, just me and a friend of mine. We're just going to do it like in front of I'm going to do it in front of an audience, and we start to do our reads, and he texts the other guy, said, "This is the worst guy I've ever seen. He'll never make it on TV." He goes, "Just shut up. He's paying you." And well, he was kind of right. We went to do it the next day, and I was petrified. The audience, and 2 hours went by, and finally I said, "Can we just bring in a table? And I just want to do it naturally, like I'm selling at a show, like just some home show here in Minnesota." And so we did it. It aired October 7th, 2011, the middle of the night. I was living in my sister's basement I had like 10 employees, mostly family. And 40 days later, I had 500 employees. We were the #1 infomercial in the world by the end of December of 2011. But over the next 6 months, I took in tens of millions of dollars. But I woke up in May one day and I'm going, wow, I'm $6 million in debt. And I'm thinking, God, what did I do wrong? God, I'm going to work the rest of my life for nothing. It was just overwhelming. But I pulled everything in and learned from that, pulled everything in house. I had betrayal, handshake deals and all this stuff, but contracts that took advantage of me in that spring of 2012. But I took everything and I didn't view it as a catastrophe. I viewed it as an opportunity. How can I make the best then ever? And then here we are, 85 million MyPillows later that have been sold and were able to withstand the biggest attack ever. It was like God set this up back then. But if 2012 hadn't happened, that complete disaster, I would not have been where I'm at now. Kind of like I always say, the 2020 election, everybody, is the most important election in history. And they're going, Mike, what do you mean by that? And I'm going, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have learned the last 5 years. Our president wouldn't have had time to sit and make all this, get everything ready for what's going on now. And he wouldn't have had all this stuff revealed, this uniparty and all the things revealed that in our politics of where you have bad people, deep state, globalists. We had to have this. It was a necessity, the 2020 election. And now what's the most important election? I will tell all of you, the midterms. Right now, there's nothing more important. Everything we've gained on evil, we're right here. And it's all about winning this. If we don't, everything can be lost in a blink of an eye. We have one big advantage: is evil is greedy. Evil is greedy, and they just keep, these things that are happening in Minneapolis and stuff, this fraud. What an opportunity we have there. It's not about, this, it's how terrible a tragedy, that 18 million or 18 billion. You guys, this is going to open up eyes across the country, and it's opening eyes to another huge thing, and that is Sharia law. That is this invasion we've had. We've had companies in Minnesota that have had to deal with this. Look at Cargill in January, I believe, of 2016. They fired 200 of these of 200 Somalians because they wanted to shut down their lines. And back then you'd be a racist by doing that. Cargill did anyway. And of course they settled for 1.5 million, I think it was, because for them it was better to have their company running than to fight this, and they'd rather get them out. And this is a huge problem that's getting revealed. That we were the Trojan horse, Minnesota, of what other thing that's much bigger than a Republican Democrat thing. And I used to think that politics weren't important. It's the most important thing. It controls everything we do. And we're all seeing that now. And that's why it is so important. And I'll put a plug in, get out to the caucus, right? As everybody's got to get out there, because I really feel our pathway, we only have one pathway, and that we have to win. And I don't think there's anybody else that can win.
Mike, let me just say, your caucus, you can go to the Secretary of State website. There's a caucus location finder. It's a neighborhood meeting. Mike just alluded to being afraid to speak in front of groups. And, this is God's plan. Nobody would believe that. I'm a very introverted person. This is very hard for me to do, but I'm called to do it. So we do what we got to do. Your fear keeps you from going to caucus. Actually, it's very simple. You go with your neighbors. You get elected as a precinct delegate. A month later, you go to your Senate district convention. You get elected as a state delegate. There'll be 2,200 state delegates. They will endorse who gets the Republican Party endorsement. 2,200 people. If we get 500 new people into that process, the arc of history will be changed. And if you want to participate in a movement that is truly epic, maybe the most important thing that's happened in human history since Jesus Christ, we're right here, right now. And we got to get out and do it. And if we don't, as Mike said, all the gains we've made could be eliminated in a blink of an eye.
Yes.
So I'm asking you, please, this is the time to get out. It's February 3rd, 7 p.m. Go be part of the process. When you get in there and you see it with your own eyes, and we got Free People Radio, we'll help you organize. Everybody can get in touch with me at support@tireget.com. That's support at Target.com. I'll help you if you have questions. I'm here to work with you. This whole effort is about political action. One of the things, Mike, about this podcast, I'm not going for a volume audience. I'm looking for the people that make a difference. That's it.
Right.
And that's what God has me doing. I mean, there's people, sure, I'm jealous of the people that have 10 million followers. It's a great monetizable audience. But I'm at peace with just working with the people that matter. And there are hundreds of Minnesota delegates that watch this podcast. And I want all of them to understand the criticality, not of just you going, but bring your neighbors.
Right.
Bring an army with you. And then and you know what? If that doesn't work, we're going to plan B. That's what's great about being an entrepreneur. It's we're not sitting on one plan.
That's right.
We'll deploy any plan we have to get to the objective.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're spot on. And we've got to, this is like when I heard about the February 3rd, see, I'm learning all this myself, and everybody, the importance of it is they're doing, it's like, oh, and I won't name candidates. For me, I'm going to tell people what I can do, but I will say this establishment, they get their own, they get their narrative is out there right now going, well, gee, we have our one opportunity in years since 1969 to get all three red, the House, the Senate, and the governor. And boy, Mike Lindell will come in and he could be, like you say, there's people that won't like that because he's so friends with Donald Trump, or he's so associated with Donald Trump. I'm going, is that a bad thing? I mean, we need an entrepreneur. The association I see is he's a great entrepreneur and businessman, and that's what we need. He's already proven that. This is what we need, and this is what I do, and this is what I've done. And so,
well, that's the last thing they want, Mike. The last thing they want is a guy that can really read a spreadsheet, looking at what's going on in these agencies.
Oh, absolutely. You talked about looking for fraud. I'll tell you, we find everything's going to be held accountable, and they, you have to have that, and that's what you're right. That's what they fear, and then they fear. Well, one of the things too is our election platforms. Of course, they fear that. What's going on now, and I can tell you all the stuff that's pouring out every day, and everyone says, "Well, Mike, if you think that our elections aren't secure, aren't they just going to cheat?" Well, of course they're going to cheat. They just like they did in the 2024 election with the president. I could sit and tell you they stole 9 seats. They stole 4 Senate seats. They stole about $5 million from Donald Trump in the 2024 election. But what we have now, this is a process, and we're going to have enough stuff in place in Minnesota here. I'm not going to get out ahead of myself. Where if they do steal this in the general election, against Klobuchar, I believe it's her. The deviations are going to be so big this time that you're going, hey, how can this be, these impossibilities? And people now, over 5 years, they know that the importance of secure elections. If you think that there's fraud, you look at all the fraud we have in our welfare programs, you think it's in our elections, but we have stuff in place and secure, and it comes back to what we talked to at the beginning of the program. It has to be a too big to rig thing. I know how to win. I help the president. We calculate, or we strategize all that. When you talked about the too big to rig, there's great teams on the ground we have in Minnesota, in every county, by the way, for the elections. But so all we need is this. What do you call it? You need the public to get behind. What they'll do is it's all about marketing, and they'll say, well, Mike Lindell can't do this because we're going to do this. I heard something the other day that there's certain candidates that can't even, they wouldn't even they can only get X amount of money because they're already, I think it was Damath, can only get X amount of money to advertise or to do advertising because she's a Speaker of the House. There's all these different rules. And I'm going, if we talk about raising money, I'm the only one that can do it nationally. I'm going down to Mar-a-Lago in a week, going down there to do, I'm raising money now. We got to win this. This is money we need now, and policies we need now, to raise money. And that's a big thing for people out there going, hey, we need to have um, nationwide, get the nation behind us. And we have that perfect opportunity right now to get money pouring in for this election, because we are the tip of the spear. We are the Trojan horse for a lot of evil things that can happen, that are happening.
I want to just say a couple quick things. Number one, if you would like me when you have time to sit down with you for an hour and tell you everything you need to know about the landscape of MnGOP, I'm your guy, because I know it. I've been in the trench with these people. I know them
Right.
personal, and I would like to share that with you. Also, I'm not too shy to say I'd love some mentoring for Target.com. I'm a good marketer, but hey, the proof's in the pudding. You're the king of marketing, so I'm always open to that. A little quid pro quo there. And not to put you on the spot, but we're talking about this election mechanism here in Minnesota, and I think Rick Weibel is your campaign manager, is what I heard, if that's true. And I know Rick, and he's put a ton into this. And just to give you a little aside, I was with the party in 21, and I was starting to stir things up here. And from the very top of the party, they came to me and they said, we can support some of what you're doing, but never talk about election integrity. That's your party here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Your party boss, Alex Plekish, I
Right.
watched him almost go to blows with somebody over this issue.
Yeah.
So, but Hennepin County, are you up on what's going on in Hennepin County with the election? I don't want to put you on the spot because it's one county in this whole country. But I think I heard in the last cycle in 24 that there was a 91% voter participation rate in Hennepin County.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're laughing because I'm a strong.
When you can bring 8 people in and vouch for them, I mean, come on.
TireGet.com, where convenience meets the road. Why make buying tires complicated? With TireGet.com, it's simple. TireGet.com, one site, a few clicks, and the tires of your choice are shipped to an installer right by your house.
I think you're going to here's another thing that's going to happen, everybody. I really believe, I know, evil's greedy, but we're watching from everything. We're doing everything the president is on down at the federal level. I talk to him all the time about, he knows that our election platforms are his number one, by the way. It all comes from there. And he would tell you that. What's our number one thing? And he said, we've got to secure election. If we don't have election, it's all going to go away. But you bring up a good point. So there's a thing that's going to happen in these midterms, especially with all this fraud, and you got to see this as an opportunity. Now, they know that this will be the most scrutinized, watched election in history. We have teams on the ground. We have teams that there's so much that's going to be watched. You're not going to. Are these things going to get changed? You got these other candidates for governor going, well, as soon as I'm governor, I'm going to do this, and we're going to have, same day voting, all these other things. Well, good for you. That's great. But we got to win this election first. And the stuff we're doing is we're addressing every county. What is this county? What can be done here? How can they be caught in this? And you know what? If that's why I say it's so important to get where, like the president did in 2024, and I was part of that, the too big to rig is we're stuck with, in Minnesota, the 45 days early, we were early voting before early voting was the crime of the country. Remember, 132 countries have banned electronic voting machines, and over 100 countries have banned early voting and mail-in voting. We have the worst election platforms in the world, and Minnesota is one of the worst of the worst. And so we're working on that. But we're going to go county by county and see that these mathematical impossibilities. And I really believe that you're not going to have, if people realize, you start with this fraud going on now, and people are going to be put in prison, and people also deported that are overstayed their visas, and all the illegals. They might be hesitant to even be involved in it, be afraid. I think you're going to get these people where fraud was the way, even election fraud. You might have some that flip. We're starting to see whistleblowers now at the national level with these machine companies. I don't know if you follow that. Your
Yes,
Smartmatics
sir. Yep.
of the world, they've been tried for crimes against their whole company has been up for crimes. But yet in Minnesota here, there's still one case going on, Mike Lindell, because these machine companies have said to me, if you don't talk about us again, we'll do a walk away. I ain't walking away. You go make blenders or something. But we're going to get to. We've got a great plan I just met with my teams in California, and it's a very simple plan. It's an added security measure it's an add-on. It's not elimination because you're right. It's probably too hard to eliminate all the voting machines in the next 10 months. And let's just talk Minnesota. But we have this amazing, I just met with them last week. It's absolutely just an add-on safety thing that everyone should agree on, whether I don't care what party you're in, of the people. The people should agree on it. Now, obviously, the uniparty's not going to like it because they won't be able to cheat it at the mass scale that they've been able to. So that's going to be a big announcement over the next couple of weeks. And because I'm not going to wait until 3 months before the midterms, we're going to get this stuff put in now. But I've got to strategize with my teams, and I'm going to bring it to the president. This is just a safety thing put on. It's another camera angle, so to speak. And they say, well, you can't see inside the machines. Well, with what we're putting in, and it's going to be amazing. And it starts in California. They did it in the California election in these counties. Shasta County was one of them in the 2024 election. So there's already proof that it worked beautifully. And I'm very excited. So that's coming soon.
That's great. That's great because you've been the pioneer in this area, and you paid the price. I just want to tell the audience, and Mike, I want to share with you, had Kamala Harris won, there was a federal election bill that had been proposed to federalize all the elections. And Amy Klobuchar, who could be your opponent, her normal bill is, beautifying the Lake Superior lakefront or more air traffic controllers in small airports. She's very careful about not sticking her neck out because they're getting her ready for big things. But on this election issue, she was the sponsor and the author of the federal election bill. This is before the last election. And I read this bill because I'm one of those weird dudes I'm a policy wonk. So I was reading it, and I'm reading about 40, 50 pages into it. And you know what I figured out? I've read all this stuff before. It's the Minnesota election law. They've used Minnesota as the crucible, as the petri dish to create this federal program. So, winning these next two elections, it's the tail of the tape. It's the whole game. We have to make it happen.
I want to bring up something with Amy Klobuchar. So with Amy Klobuchar, you guys, she was sorry, my dog got dogs barking. With Amy Klobuchar, you guys, number one, there's two things. I was happy to hear she'll play the opponent because she, in the movie Kill Chain in 2018, you guys watched the movie Kill Chain. Amy Klobuchar was the number one. It was all Democrats, Kamala Harris, but she was number one to get rid of the voting machines. She said that 4 companies, and she named them, control all of our elections. She named Dominion and Smartmatic and Hart and ES&S. And she didn't get sued, did she? She said, they control our elections. We've got to get rid of them. She was that number one. And now she went silent on it, obviously, the last how many years. And then she wants to federalize it with machines. I will call her out. She and her fraud, but there's so much on Amy. By the way, remember Amy was she was in power when all this fraud came in Minnesota. We're going to have a lot of fun with Amy in this election because there was some times where they say, "Oh, she's untouchable." How many people have you seen? How many races have you ever seen where they just abandon their Senate seat to run for governor? They are in such fear of losing this that they pulled something that hasn't been done. I don't know when it's ever been
that's
done.
the biggest tell for us as citizens about how terrified these people are about this upcoming election.
Absolutely.
They're terrified.
Absolutely, there could, evil will lose, but when you talk about, you talk about federalizing like that. If Amy put that on there, we will call her out on that. I mean, that's Amy, you're saying what happened here. It's almost like now, people don't see that. The sad thing is when we're looking at our social media sites, especially old Suckerbucks Facebook, you're looking at these. I'm getting a different stream of than you're getting, or that Democrats getting over here. I live on platforms like your David Pacman, a very evil man that puts all this propaganda. So I'm over there and I'm seeing what they're seeing. It's a whole different narrative that they're brainwashing people over here, right? And that with the media like that controlling um, the thinking. So that, but to be, what I'm saying is to put out this campaign is to, exposing educating people, what people don't know is explain, like Amy Klobuchar, explain this, Amy, explain this, because they're getting something completely different than someone seeing over here. And it's going to be, like I said, we're at a turning point and tipping point in history where it's actually kind of exciting. It's the best time ever to be alive during this time, because this is a historical battle of good and evil, and people have to. You can only remember, everybody, to steal an election or to do any of these things. You have to be given a false narrative by the media to tell you that it could happen, that this could happen, right? You got to put out, oh, this could happen. It's a 1 in a trillion. It's a one, but it could happen. It's kind of like the movie Dominic. So you're telling me there's a chance, Well, we've been through this, and so you talk about these things coming as like, like I say, if we go back all the way to the beginning of the show, we're in such a better place because of our voice it's expanded so much now that people don't get their information from your mainstream media anymore, or your Star and Tribune, which is just a horrible newspaper, by the way.
I was listening to Morning Joe on what's now called MS Now, MSNBC, and just this morning, their big point was that Pam Bondi had sent a letter to Waltz saying that ICE would be withdrawn if the state of Minnesota would let the federal government know about the SNAP and other program benefits, who's getting them. Number two, if they would work with federal law enforcement to remove people that were criminals here.
Right.
And then number three, the federal government asked for the Minnesota voter rolls, and in exchange, if they'd give those things, the whole policy could be changed for Minnesota. And they were making such a big deal about this as an effort to subvert the elections. See, this is the challenge of politics. Whatever we do, they're going to take it and try to use it against us. And that's really the critical thing about our Constitution and our form of government. These evil people have no problem and no compunction, no guilt, no shame about using the freedom that we have to take our freedom away, to take the honest effort of the president to just look at the voter rolls. Let's just confirm what's going on. And 23 states gave the voter rolls to the federal government, and they only found 10,000 cases of illegal voting. Well, of course, that's Florida and Texas. You mess around with the voting down in Texas, and Ken Paxton is going to put your ass in jail. But 27 states did not give the federal government the voter rolls. So now there's lawsuits, and it's going to have to go to the Supreme Court. They're just trying to get to the other side of this election so they can do it again, in my opinion, sir.
Oh, no, you're 100% right. And remember, everybody, I bought every voter roll in the United States in 21 and 2022. And states, you wouldn't believe it, I had to pay $40,000. And I'll give an example. In Alabama alone, to get their voter rolls, who voted, and this was the 2020 election. And this was one of my biggest surprises, too, is I went into Alabama. I flew around. I put over 650 hours on my plane when I still had it, burned out 4 pilots going all over the country, gathering information and evidence. I went into this John Merrill, Secretary of State of Alabama, a Republican, and I was this was my first big surprise. I go, John, look at your voter rolls here and look who voted. Over 4,662 people voted in Alabama that were over 110 years old. And he looked at me and goes, well, Mike, we live pretty good here in Alabama. And I'm going, why, are you kidding me? He was kidding. I thought he was kidding, but you know what he did? He went out and bought more machines. And and so I'm going, why would you not want to look into this? And this is the big pushback, everybody. This has been one of the, we uncovered, we broke through the biggest cover up of the biggest crime in history, which was the 2020 election. I think everybody knows, I don't care who you are, that computers in elections should not be used, like the 132 other countries have banned them. And we've got the example of Argentina in the summer of 22. It took one judge to say, we can't use these machines anymore. And they go, well, Judge, it's only 4 months to the election. She says, I don't care. And they pulled it off. They beat the Netherlands by 1 month, and they freed their whole country. They have a president now that was elected and not selected. It's a beautiful thing. And so that fight, that we're here, and you go, now, why would these party Republicans? It's been a big reveal of who. You go over to Arkansas, and I'll give you an example there in Arkansas. And Cleburne County, this is a perfect example of what we're up against, everybody, when it comes to these election platforms. In Arkansas, which you can in most places in the United States, you can go, your own county can vote out the machines and go to paper ballots hand counted. And Cleburne County, Arkansas did just that. And I believe it was January of 23, I believe. And so they switched over to paper, and now within a month later, this guy, it's a guy, Kim Hammers, a Republican, horrible man, shoves a bill through. And here's what the bill said. And Sarah Sanders Huckabee, she stamped that. She's as bad as anyone for uniparty Republicans out there with our election platform. She stamped it. Here's what
Glad you said that, Mike.
If you're a county in Arkansas and you go to paper ballots, we're defunding your county. So they defund the county. In other words, you're going to pay for all your own stuff, your election. So right away, Cleburne County went, oh, we're sorry. We love our machines. Bring the machines back in. And all the other counties in Arkansas got afraid to do that because of that bill passed. This is what we're up against, and it doesn't make sense. So in Minnesota here, when they're telling, when we talk about cast vote records, everybody, that's the one thing we can get under the Freedom of Information Act. So you can go to your county, and you enter that. You can ask hey, I want our voter roll. I want our cast vote records. And we did this in the summer of 2022. I put out a big push for everyone in all 50 states to ask for their cast vote records. Well, a cast vote record, everybody, is it's like if you miss a football game and it's the order the votes come in. It'll prove either election or computer manipulation or not. There's nothing in between. It will prove one or the other. Okay, doesn't mean you're going to prove the election was flipped, but it was computer manipulated. Okay, so we reached out for this, and by federal law, you have to hold it 2 years and 2 months. You have to keep those records. Well, we were able to get 1/3 of the United States. Everyone had been computer manipulated. In the 2022 election, we were able to only get 1/4 because states were pushing back. Minnesota said, we don't know what cast vote records are, but if we do, you can't have them. That was their response.
That's great.
So anyway, that's the fight we've been
in. Nothing to see here. Move along.
Now we're winning that. We're winning that, everybody. And I'm going to bring it back one more time to our communication. Our communication, great podcasts like yourself, to be able to get information from all different platforms rather than just a few places. And one of the biggest problems we've had is your Fox News and your Newsmaxes of the world, because what they've done, everybody, when it comes to election platforms and talking about our elections, whether you get paper ballots or anything like that, because of lawfare and other reasons, they will not talk about it, period. So I always said they become weather channels that won't talk about hurricanes or tornadoes, if you can follow that analogy.
I get it.
Sometimes
Great.
sometimes not saying something is worse than attacking. Okay, so we trusted those places to talk about it. Do we want voter ID? Do we want to get rid of early voting? Do we want the? And they don't talk about it. And so the evil was very smart marketing. They silenced them way back when. And they didn't silence the rest of us, so they kept saying, "Hey, we got problems. We have problems in our election platform." So
You know, you
having
got to.
this,
You just let me just say, you have to follow the money. There was a very famous lawsuit between one of these election platforms and Fox News,
yeah,
and a lot of money changed hands. But it's
right,
very interesting. Who owned both companies?
right. That's
The same
exactly
people
right.
own both companies.
Yeah,
And that would
exactly.
be,
Yeah,
not to get myself in any more trouble than I'm in, that'd be BlackRock, Larry
right.
Fink.
That'd be BlackRock. You're exactly right. Yeah,
So they own, this huge settlement was made. So BlackRock took money out of their left pocket and put it into their right pocket. And anybody that was left at Fox News that had the stones to call out what they were seeing, some of them got fired. We know that. Some of them were silenced. And that's just the game. And then you've
right.
kept on going along like the bunny.
Well, just real quick, I'll tell you about that week when this was a week, I forget if it was 22 or 23, it was the spring. And this all happened in 1 week. On a Tuesday, Fox News with Dominion settled. All of a sudden, it came over the news, settled for $757 million. That was on a Tuesday. On a Wednesday, Mike Lindell loses very next day. They had waited on this. Mike Lindell loses $5 million. All his evidence is bad. On a Friday, the same week, Tucker gets fired, but yet he still gets paid because he was going to start talking about the election platform. So Fox silenced him. So in 1 week, they went, let's silence everybody. So and they would have won everybody. This would have been over. But we just kept talking and talking about our election, and we need to secure our elections, and we will get there. And this is just another important part, the winning the 2024 election. I had said to our president, I said, if I'm their marketer for evil, I'm not. I gave an example. I said, if someone was going to give us China virus 2.0, like 3 months before the 2024 election, do you think we would have all fell for that, all that stuff again? No, we wouldn't have let Tim Walz have a seat outside in snowbanks at our restaurant. We wouldn't have let him keep us in Thanksgiving where we could only have 10 in our house, or your neighbor could turn you in and going down the streets telling you, get back in your house. We wouldn't have put up with it. And we would not have put up with with election crime 2.0, because too many people were onto it. So now if I'm evil's marketer, I go, hey, we can't steal this election. If we do, they're onto us. We're going to lose our computers and everything. We're going to lose our mechanisms to steal that. So let's just do this. Let's steal about 5-6 million from him to make it look closer than it is. They stole 9 congressmen. Remember, they came in, everybody, 2 months after the 2024 election. These were rolled in. The last 9 all went for the Democrats, and then 4 senators they took. So to make it look close, so then in this upcoming midterm, you can say, oh, it's all this stuff going on over here. Not all the good things. They'll pin out one thing to make you believe that it could happen. In the 2025 election, everybody, that we just had in New Jersey or Virginia, the AG was favored by 8 points to win the night before the election. 8 points. It's impossible for him to lose. They stole it. My cyber guys are watching. They stole it. But you know what? Marketing is all about deception and distraction. Everybody was pointing at New York, the horrible election in New York, electing that Marxist socialist. So they're all talking about that. Instead, they're stealing right under the gate here, stealing this AG. So but we're going to have all eyes on this election, but it all starts now. And I can't say enough
Mike,
to
I hadn't thought about that. If you become the nominee or the endorsed candidate, or you win the primary, their range of action is really truncated. I mean,
Yeah.
the godfather of this issue,
Right.
they got to deal with you. So
They're gonna
we
have
really
to deal-
don't, we really don't know what's going on here in Minnesota, do we?
Yeah,
We really don't know.
There's so many things, and we've got a lot of things I can't even say because I don't want them to look at this. You know what I mean? We've got out ahead of we did in California. We kind of got out ahead of ourselves, and they just changed the laws on us quick. So this is all going to be a timing thing. I told you we have safety things coming in for this election. What we're gonna you're right. This is the knowledge we have for both from the top down, like I told you with the president, and then the grassroots we have here in Minnesota, and all the knowledge we have. We're going to have, I promise you, everybody, the best. If I'm the candidate, if I'm the one to go head to head, we will have everything in place that the best we can to win this election, and including too big to rate, and included all these cross checks. So if they do steal or when they try, that they're caught. You know, we might get a 2-4 out of this. Here, they're caught. You know, you get a 2, I win, and then you get a 2%. Because I've told people, you guys, when Donald Trump won the 2024 election, everybody came up to me, all the CBSs and the NBCs and the CNNs of the world, and they go, Mike, you've been vindicated, huh? They go, was this election stolen though? Your friend won? And I said, I wouldn't trust any election ever done with the computer. You think I stopped then? I've been attacked more since the 2024 election than I was before that, because it's still a threat. Who's the biggest threat to get to paper ballots, hand counting, get rid of these voting machines once and for all is myself and my teams that are out there. So why do they continue to attack? Why is Keith Ellison attacking my Lindell Recovery Network? Why is he attacking my foundation that is the premise to solve all these welfare programs? Because they see number one, they want Mike Lindell to shut up. They don't want me running for being governor. But number two, it goes right against the Christian, getting people from out of addiction to Jesus. And it's everything Keith Ellison doesn't want. And the evil.
Well, because that'd end the grift. Because
Yeah.
you're going to be the spokesperson. I mean, I've heard you talk about it, but from my own life, the key for American citizens at this point is to put down our addiction to sin so that we can commune with God and so we can have righteous people. You know, you ask yourself, my audience, why are we so screwed up? It's because you don't go into politics. Did you hear what Mike said? He used to think it wasn't important, like all of us living our life. And one day, he was thunderstruck because God called him to pick up his cross, and he did. Well, you know what? It's downstream. Now, if we'd all just pick up our cross, hey, guess what? You're not going to have to bear the suffering that some of the rest of us have borne, but we still need you to do it.
Yeah.
We're not going to get rid of these uni-party professional grifters unless everyday good people get into the party and clean these folks out with an elective process. And on that note, Mike, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come in. It was great to meet you. I would like to be a resource for you if you'd like some inside pool. Of course, I know you got people around you, so I just want you to know I'm here. I'd like to invite you in studio as this thing plays out down the road. I want to thank you sincerely, and I want to thank you for the inspiration that you've personally given me, and you have. And I mean, I'm walking the entrepreneur's road. I'm doing it within my own scope, my own sphere of influence, and I'm peaceful doing whatever God asked me to do today. I'm not looking down the road 10 years. I just pray, give me the strength today to do what I need to do. Tell me what I need to do today. And I want to thank you for coming in so much. God bless you. Be safe. And if we can do anything to help, please call on us.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank you for having me on. And I want to tell everybody out there, part of this is everybody needs hope. And we need to just show that there's hope, and that's to get people out. I think people have the hope this time because it's so critical. And I do want to say, if you want to see everything else I'm doing, it's MikeLindellGov.com. You can see more of what I'm doing. I'm putting stuff up there all the time, the solutions that we have and that are out there, and
you can donate there too.
To keep the faith. People aren't going to get other people out to vote. Get educated on what and what we're doing, how critical this election is. This is not like any other in history. So I just encourage everyone, get out to them caucus, bring not 20, bring 50 people. And people have a voice. I always tell people, go on all the social media platforms, and I don't care if you have 10 friends, get out there and get everybody involved. Your voice is big too, and that's something we can do, and keep praying, pray. So, but thanks for having me on, and I will be getting a hold of you if they we've got to unite and beat evil. This is a
Work
spiritual
together.
battle.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. God bless
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for coming on today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.